Okay, this one is coming together quite well. I finished this one, I stitched it, and I put a little triangle in it on it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put a triangle in each one of my pieces and let them fall just wherever they fall when I put them together. So this was the next one I did. It was a little bit longer, and it has a triangle in it too, as you can see. And in fact, it has two. It has one there and one there. There was a gap there and there was a gap there, so I used that to cover the gaps. Okay, now I do have, let's see, I wanted to show you how I'm going to put these in strips. And I'll decide, I haven't decided yet, but how wide I want this slab quilt. And that's how I will make my strips that long. And when I get all my strips done, then I will attach the strips, okay? But this is how I'm going to do this since they're quilted onto the batting pieces, okay? I'm going to butt them up like that. And you notice these are off just a little bit. And that's okay because when I come back to put my stripping on, I will make sure that it's wide enough that when I sew it down, I'll catch both sides. But right now, I just want to, let me thread up my needle, show you how I'm going to attach these. Now remember, I'm going to have an overall backing fabric on the whole thing. And then I'm going to tack and tie this quilt. So there'll be plenty of structure and foundation. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to just come through the back side of this batting. Okay, just the back side. I don't want to go all the way to the front. And I just want to catch it just enough to stabilize it, okay? We're just stabilizing it. We're not really making it structurally sound. We're just stabilizing it. Okay. Let's keep doing that. Just kind of lacing it together more or less. Okay. We do want to make it snug. In other words, not overlapping, but butting up really nicely and close. Okay, that gives us a nice flat juncture there. Okay. Okay. Definitely not hard, just a little bit tedious. Okay, looking good. Everything is staying nice. You do want your little ends to be nice and straight so that when they lay up next to each other, they fit well. So if your batting and stuff is a little bit crooked, make sure you straighten up those ends before you try to sew them together. Okay. Okay, as you're going to see, we're going to have like a 1/16 here, maybe even an 1/8, but we have 1/4 inch all the way around that well, it doesn't even have to be a 1/4 inch that we're going to play with, but so now there we have it. It's nice and flat. Can you see that? Let me show you that. It's nice and flat and it comes together really nicely, okay? And if we flip it over, that's what the front side looks like, okay? Now, we are going to flip it over, and we are going to take a piece of fabric, and we're going to do we're going to sew it down one side and then down the other. And first of all, I'm going to pin it straight. So it stays in place, catching both sides. It's wide enough that it spans the two pieces really well and allows me to put my sew my junction on here. Okay, we're going to sew the same way. We're going to come up about 1/4 inch in and start, do our little tacking stitch. Okay, and then start our running stitch. And we are definitely working on one side of it. So we'll just, now these stitches I'm going to make a little smaller than the stitches I've been sewing with, just sewing the other stuff down with, because these are going to be more stress stitches, in other words. So you definitely want them to be stronger and hold well. Now this has, first of all, the lacing on the back side, and then it'll have the sewn juncture on the front side, and so it should be nice and strong. And then when it gets a backing and everything gets tied, then that alleviates a lot of stress off of these connections. And that backing fabric is a real good foundation stabilizer. So we just do our little running stitch and just keeping it a little smaller, a little more regular. Okay, and somebody asked me, can't you sew this by machine? Do you have to sew it by hand? Yes, of course you can sew it by machine. You can do just basically the same thing, just do it with a machine. But for all of us who love hand sewing, this is definitely the way we enjoy doing it. It's not about the labor, it's just about the stitching. We just love to poke things, I guess, but we love the stitching, and so we don't mind that it takes a lot longer. It's kind of a quilt as you go type little thing, just using your scraps, strips. Torn raw edges. Everything's very scrappy. Great way to utilize leftover fabrics. Just tear them into strips. Okay, let's keep going down this side. Let's take this pin out, straighten this out. There we go. And finish coming down this raw edge here to about 1/4 inch there. Okay, so now let's look at the back side. Sure enough, we have a nice stitching on both sides of this laced juncture. Okay, we can definitely come back and add another row if we want to, and I think I will add another row. I think another one close to the one I'm doing. That way I know I'm getting 2 rows per side, and that doesn't have to be done, but I just think that extra stitching would look nice, and it certainly will help with the strength of the quilt overall. Just kind of keep it close to this other line. See if yes, I'm coming down. Can you see that? I'm coming down 2 rows on the, and I'll come back and do the other one. Give me a nice strong connection here. Okay, we're gonna go to the other side. And hope again our thread holds out. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. Won't be the first time I have to rethread. Does this look like a fun winter project? Something that's small, you can work on easily. Now when you get your strips made and you start sewing those bigger strips together, then it becomes a lot bulkier and a little bit harder to handle, but it's still all doable. I've done them before in years past, and it just gets bulky, but it's okay. One lady says, when it gets to that part, I put it on the machine. Well, that's an option too. And if it's too bulky for you to handle, just machine sew it. Okay, that's going to end that. We're going to tie it off back here. We've got 2 rows on both sides of that laced juncture. I don't know if I'm going to get the knot in this. I don't have much thread here. I think what I'm going to do is just backlay it, work it through, leave it like that. Okay, a very nice strong bind there. All right, let's take this and clean it up to this edge. This is our straight edge. This one is the edge that has the little gap to it. So I'm just going to take it out to this feathers one and do it like that. Okay, so that is 2 pieces together now. Okay. All right. Then we'll be adding our next section. And then eventually we'll be attaching them in this direction. Okay. All right. That'll work. Okay. Let's see. Before I go any further, is there anything that I've missed, any gaps or anything I want to cover or fill in, or it's a good time to do any little add-ons that you want to do while it's still small and in your hand constructing here. Okay. Now this piece that I used here wasn't as long as this, and I'm thinking I'm going to break this up a little and not have it quite that long. Work it in a little bit smaller pieces. This is not quite a straight edge, so I think what I'm going to do is, that looks pretty. Eyeball this here, get this straight, and then bring it down and cut off just a little. And I won't throw this away because it could be that I may need to cover a bigger gap and I want it to be more dimensional, and I could use that for that. I don't know, but I'll just hold on to that. Now, that makes a little bit better piece there. And I'm also going to fold it up and clean up this little bit of edge over here. Okay, so now we're about the same width and would be able to butt up pretty good on the ends there. Looks good doing that. So, okay. So now we'll work on the next one and we'll get it sewn in there. Okay. All right. I'm going to get a few of these done and at least get one row completed, and then I'll be back for part 2. So be on the lookout for part 2. Well, what do you think? I don't have much room on my desk here because of my strips. Have to push them over, but so here we go. Now, the first thing you're probably going to notice is that I've already put a couple of strips together when I said I was going to make all my strips first. Well, again, when you sew intuitively, you make changes in the middle of the road, and that's what I've done here. I've decided to be able to handle this better with my hands and everything. I'm going to try. Now, I haven't done one this way, so you're going to learn from my mistakes as well as the really brilliant things I do. But anyway, I'm going to work from the middle out, a little bit like a log cabin design. We'll be going around it and in different directions. I think that way then I will only have to wad up so much to get to that next part that I'm going to work to. Anyway, if that doesn't make sense, it'll make sense as I go along. Now the first, these two pieces were put together. They're joined here, and then I put this piece on, and now I'm attempting to put this piece on and it'll be joined here. Let me show you the back. These two pieces were my first pieces. You remember I joined those right here. Then I sewed down to make it really strong. Okay. Then I added this top piece right up to the top here. Since I'm just using scrap batting as well as I'm not cutting exact shapes, I'm basically 3.5 inches, but sometimes that can be like 3 1/4, so it leaves me a little gap. That's what happened here. So I used a little piece of fabric on the back to help to join those to make sure that that's strong. And here, this piece here is doing the same thing. It's very strong, and it's not going to come apart, and you will never know that that's joined like that when it's all said and done. You wouldn't have known that from the beginning. Now, this piece, I haven't sewn it yet. I've got it fitted in there, but I'm having the same problem in the sense that this piece was not as wide, but I wanted to use it. And so I attached a piece of fabric that lapped over on this side right here. Now, that gave me something to sew to the first time and would lap over on the back side. Then I will be coming in here and I will be adding another strip right there that will cover that and give me a double strength front and back. Okay, so wherever your mistakes are, wherever things don't lap right, wherever you got gaps, just start layering, and it's okay to layer on the back too. All of this is going to be covered by a backing fabric. And in fact, if I wanted to, I could add another layer of batting and then a backing fabric, because I'm going to tie this quilt. You know, that's like when you take your thread and you just run it down and up and leave 2 strings and then tie them off and clip them. I'm going to tie this quilt. So because it's already quilted as we're going along with our stitching. So I could add another layer of batting and then a backing fabric, tie the quilt. And that may be exactly what I do, because that would make it even a little softer and more substantial all the way around. But meanwhile, while we're building this scrappy quilt with scraps, we're going to have gaps and holes and things that just don't fit right. And so it's our job to make it work using our scraps. Now right here, let me see what I've got here. Oh, I don't have a piece of, let's just get some thread out here. I thought I had, again, needle threaded, but I didn't. Let's get some. Separated, I'm using 2 strands here. I don't know if any of you older ladies have as much trouble certain times with the arthritis in your hands. I know right now that I am having a battle with that, so it's it's been hard. I like to keep on stitching. I can't stitch as long at a time or as much, but I like to keep stitching because I want to keep, you know, my fingers and all as limber as I can. What happens when my hands act up with arthritis is they swell, and that makes it a little hard. But anyway, enough of my moaning and groaning. We'll get on with this. So I have this butted up here. I have this butted up here and ready to attach. So you remember how we did the last one? We just came in here and did like a little lacing. Well, come on. This doesn't have to be real sturdy. It's just a way to keep our edges butted up nicely to each other. Keeps us all straight for when we're sewing. Okay. So you see how that just kind of, doing a whip stitch just kind of laces that juncture together. You don't want to pull it too tight because you don't want it overlapping. Your batting, you don't want that overlapping. You just want it snug up to the other piece. So just gently do that. One of the wonderful things about working scrappy is that you can cover up any problem areas. It just, I haven't found one yet that I couldn't cover up. And you'll be the only one, unless you're making YouTube videos, that'll know that it is a trouble area or a mistake that you made that you're now correcting in some way. And but also I like to do this because I like to show that things don't have to be perfect from the start. You don't have to go out and buy new fabric. You don't have to cut exact batting pieces, you know, close, but not exact. Okay, see how nicely that lines up there? That looks really good, doesn't it? Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to come right down here, and we're just going to sew this onto the batting on this side. Okay, another thing about scrappy and about slow stitching is that, you know, like right now, I'm not trying to get through to the other side. I'm just trying to attach this piece to the batting. But if I do get through to the other side, another stitch on the other side is not going to hurt anything. And you won't know whether I stitched it from the top or the bottom when I get through here. And so you don't worry about that either. And if you notice, I'm using all colors of threads, whatever I have. So a random color thread here or there is going to be expected. So what I'm doing basically here is attaching this, kind of like how I use the lacing here to keep these together. I'm using this fabric strip and my stitching because these two battings come together. Okay. Oh, let's get that. Let's get it. Let it straighten out. Okay. Now another thing that I like to do when I'm working, and I'm working odd pieces and so forth and so on, is I kind of like to check to make sure that I'm not getting too far off and everything getting way whoppy-doodled on me. So I like to take and do just to check every once in a while. Let's say this end, see what it's going to measure out at, right at 7 inches. So we're hoping that this one's going to do the same. And look at there, right at 7 inches. And that's kind of how I check mine as I go to make sure that it's going to be, you know, pretty symmetrical as I go. So now you see that I sewed this on the back side to this blue fabric. So that's pretty on there now. Now what I want to do is determine what fabric I'm going to put over the top here. And you know, I have a little piece of purple here. I don't think I have any purple. And I think I'm going to tuck it right under this piece I haven't sewn yet. Bring it out and over. There you go. And I'm just going to stop right there at that juncture because I will be coming back with a splicing piece here, like here. So right now, that covers that gap from this side. Let's do it this way. I will have this piece that covers that gap that you really can't see in there, but it's about that wide. And I will be sewing that, and that will cover that gap. Okay, This is covering the seam here. Okay. All right, where's our thread? Here it is. So let's go through and up to the top side. And we'll go into that piece I just put on there. And I'm going to do just an overlap stitch that's kind of long. That way that stitch will kind of show up, kind of look a little decorative. Straighten it up there. There you go. Just making him a little long and let him overlap that other piece really good. Good job. Now, if you're a perfectionist, the way I'm doing this quilt is going to drive you absolutely insane. So I'm going to give you that warning. You may not want to start. On the other hand, if you're adventurous, jump in here with me. Cut or tear your fabric into strips of different widths and lengths. And we just play with this. Get you some kind of foundation, whether it's batting or something else, whatever you want to use. And but since it is a quilt, batting works good for me. And in fact, like I said, I'm pretty much sure I'm going to use 2 layers of batting in this quilt. One as a foundation for me sew on, and the other as a cushion for the inner part to make it nice and soft and substantial feeling. Okay, see how that's working out? Looking good. Ouch. Quit stabbing myself. I'd do better. Okay, I'm going to have to end this off before I run out of thread. Don't you love seeing how the back looks? It's like a piece of artwork itself with all the direction changes and thread changes and stitch changes. And it's kind of interesting. Okay, we got that tied off. Okay. All right. Now you may wonder why I haven't cut this off. I'm thinking that I'll just leave that, and however I work this up here, my junctures aren't going to all line up. So whatever piece goes across here, let's say, let's say I have a piece up here that goes like this. Then this piece can just go over that, which again will help to fuse or blend these pieces together like one. Okay. This piece is going to be a little woppy doodled also. I could tell. Okay, but anyway, that's why I've left that hanging over. I'm going to let it overlap whatever ends up on that side. Just be another way to strengthen the quilt. The more intersections you have on something like this, the stronger the quilt. Okay. Let's continue to sew this. Now, again, these videos that I'm doing on this quilt are going to be longer because I'm doing more work on camera, and so I hope that that helps you too to work along with me, and we can have some sewing sessions together. While I'm sewing, you can be sewing. Okay, I don't, wherever you're at in the world, here where I live, it's winter, starting in the winter time. We're ending our fall. Got a few more weeks of fall, but about another month or so it'll be winter. And so right now, since the time change, the nights are longer. It's dark by 5:30. And my husband is an early to bed guy, and I'm a late to bed lady, so I do a lot of sewing at night. We have never had the same sleeping and waking schedule. Funny how different we are like that. But I do have lots of evenings to sew. And so these winter nights can get long, and I love to have a project to be working on during that time. You know, not just a day or two project, ones I'm going to spend several weeks or even the whole winter on. Pretty soon I'll be finishing up my large fabric book, and so won't be working on that this winter, which that was my project last winter. And I hope you're excited to see the finished flip through on that one. I'm just working on the cover of the book. All the book pages are made, just working on the cover, and I will have that finished before the end of the year, so be looking for that sometime in December. Meanwhile, we're getting this project off the ground. This light blue thread, even on this purple, just doesn't show, probably because of all the white spider webbing pattern on this fabric. This stitching doesn't even hardly show. Okay, I like that. Want to come up and see that? Okay, there you go. That's the one I just put on. Just stitched him over. Now I'm going to go over and stitch this down right here. And then, as you notice, I've been adding a triangle of some kind on each piece, so I need to find my triangle for that piece. Here I did 2 triangles together, then one. So I need to find me another triangle. Sometimes I have them ready from quilt pieces that a friend of mine does. She gives me lots of her quilt offcuts and things. Let me see if I can find one. Well, you know that when I want one, I can't find one. Otherwise, they'd be laying around everywhere. But I'll get one for that in a minute anyway. Okay, I'm going to tie this off and get another piece of thread that'll take care of that whole other piece. Okay, all right. Add it through here's my thread bucket. You know, I can't believe that's all I've got. Usually I've got, you know, a whole bunch more than that, but I've been using it on some of my art projects. And so I gotta get some more threads. Okay, now we need to, that seam is taken care of. This seam is taken care of. Everything's taken care of, except I need to sew this piece down here. Okay, so let's get some more thread. Let's just use the same thread we were using, the light blue. Okay, get through the thing. All right. You hear my chair? It's a squeaky chair, but the back kind of gives so you can, it's flexible, and every time I move in it, it's all that sound. Okay. Let's just roll this up so I can get up to this here. I don't worry about strings. Every once in a while I'll stop and cut a few, but otherwise, you know, just let them be. Because as this quilt ages, the frayed edges are going to string out a little bit anyway, and that's the look that you're going for. Over time, makes it look like the quilt is really old. Don't want it coming apart, of course. That's why you do all the stitching. But I do love those frayed edges. I love those raw edges. Again, on a quilt like this, if it's a really important area, I'm very careful about my stitches, but if it's just stitching, quilting it down, something like, you know, I just go for it. Little stitch, look, little stitch, big stitch. That's okay. All right, little stitch, big stitch. Let's bring you back down. Okay. The point is, don't stress, just have fun. Sometimes I do a running stitch, and sometimes it's just up and down, up and down. And up and down on this is easier because some places, because of the layering, gets pretty thick. And it's hard on my hands to try to push it through. And I don't like using a needle that's too big. I see some artisans using really large size needles, long, they can put a lot of stitches on it. I just can't do that. I've got to have a smaller needle. Let's go ahead and take that pin out. You know, I love this already. The feel of it, I love the feel of it in my hands. I love the look of all the stitching. And when I finish this little section here, I will determine how much more stitching I want on these, because you realize that as we're making this, we are quilting it as we go. We don't want to get the whole top done and then try to come back and hand stitch it. So make sure that you do all the stitching that you want on your pieces while they're still manageable for you to do that. And I do a lot as I make them individually, but then you always seem to find areas where you want to add a little more. And so take the time to do that. Before you add another section on, see if you think you've got enough stitching on the one you just worked on. If not, add some stitches. Now, to me, what makes a scrappy quilt look good, too, is a variety of fabrics. Enough variety of fabrics where you've got all kinds of color play going on, patterns going on. That is what adds to me so much charm to a scrappy quilt, okay? Especially one that doesn't have a traditional quilt pattern. It's just scrappy and you're just putting it together. Don't you just love this motion? The up and the down. Sometimes the running stitch when things aren't so thick. I just love it. It's comforting. It's relaxing. It's fulfilling in some way. Not quite sure what, but it does. It's like you feel like you've accomplished something. Love it. Okay, we're about at the end of this one. Okay, this piece is pretty thick right here. I'll do it up and a down. One final stitch in there. All right, let's turn that over. And we butted up those nicely, okay? Now we've got a row of stitches on both sides, which is going to strengthen that intersection even more. And we're just going to tie this off and leave that end there, as I said earlier. Okay. All right, there's our back. Beautiful as it is. Okay. There's our front. Beautiful as it is. And let me see if I can find something really quick. I don't want that. I don't want that. Let's see. I wonder if that would be. I wonder if that would make a nice little triangle. You know what? Let's just cut a scrappy triangle here. Doesn't have to be a perfect triangle. Do I like that? You know what? I'm not crazy about that. But if I put another piece with it, that's a nice blend, isn't it? That would look all right. I like that all right. And I really like, and I just forgot to do it, but I like to put my triangles on before I attach them to the quilt, because I don't want this to end up looking like I did just what I did. I placed the triangle according to what everything looked like. I want it more random. So that way if I do the triangles before I attach it to the main piece, they're just wherever they are. That's just where they are. And I like that concept. I have a darker green here I think I will use for that. And do that. So I'm going to sew these triangles on right here. And then I will be coming back and we will be looking at, I'll add a little piece here. And then we will start, I believe from there, I'll add just a small piece and even this out. And then we will start in the wraparound. And we will then add a piece across the end, you know, kind of like that. And we'll see where that goes. That'll butt up to this one. Then we can come down and add a piece and a juncture and a piece. Anyway, we'll just work around it like that, something like that. That's my plan. I haven't done one like this, so you're learning with me as I go, as I'm learning. You know, that's how it works. Okay, now I'm going to take off a few of these clumpy threads, put them in my thread thing. Okay, I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. I'm thinking I might put a third triangle here because that just looks so stark. Let's see what I got that I might could use. Okay, I got all kinds of fabrics here, but what? Got that one, I got that one, got that one, got that one. Here's a piece that might work. Very colorful. He's kind of like a triangle. I like that better than just the stark white, don't you? Let's trim him up just a little. Don't know exactly where I'll fit him, but maybe something like that. So there'll be 3 triangles on that one. Okay. All right, there we are for now. And until the next video, there are going to be a lot of videos in this particular quilt series. So stay with me and let me know how you're doing, if you're going to be working along with me, and how your quilt's coming. And if you have any way to show it to me, love to see it. And meanwhile, don't forget to comment, subscribe if you haven't. And let's go for it. Let's stay scrap happy.